we have waited for this day to come, how long we had fought for it, to lower health care costs, to reduce the deficit, and paid for it, to lower inflation, to save the planet. And every single Republican in the House and in the Senate voted against it.
Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, after House Democrats passed their sweeping climate and health care bill Friday, following 18 months of tense negotiations. Here now to discuss that and more in her first Sunday Show interview as White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre. Karine, I've had the privilege of having the first interviews with several White House press secretaries, Democrat and Republican. It's a privilege to have you here.
Thank you so much, John.
Let me start with the Mar-a-Lago search, which I know you can't talk about the investigation, but how concerned is President Biden about the national security implications of such highly classified materials being down there?
So, as you just stated, John, I cannot speak to that. It would be inappropriate for me to speak on that because the president has been very clear and unequivocal about this, is that when it comes to law enforcement matters, investigation, the Department of Justice has complete independence, and he has said that during his campaign. He has said that as president, we do not interfere, we do not get briefed, we do not get involved.
So I understand you can't talk about the investigation, but I'm asking you about the national security implications. As you know, top Democrats on the House Intelligence Committee are calling on the Biden administration to do an assessment of any national security challenges posed by this. Is the president concerned?
Again, I cannot absolutely cannot comment. No, I cannot comment on this. It is an investigation that is currently happening. I hear your question, but it would be inappropriate for me as the press secretary to comment on this. It would be inappropriate for any of us, even including the president or anyone in the administration, to comment on this. This is a law enforcement matter, and the Department of Justice is going to move forward as they see fit.
And it's true, Joe Biden, as a candidate, was consistent on this. As president, he's always said independent Justice Department, no politicization. But let me play something to you one of the top Republicans in the House had to say about this.
President Donald Trump is Joe Biden's most likeliest political opponent in 2024, and this is less than 100 days from critical midterm elections. The FBI raid of President Trump is a complete abuse and overreach of its authority.
So he ran on not politicizing the DOJ. He has said that as president, but how concerned is he to see this investigation play out in the middle of a campaign, at least raising the appearance of a politicized Department of Justice? So
just to comment on what I just heard, this is not true. This is not something. Let me just step back even further. When the president, on January 7th, in 2021, when the president nominated Merrick Garland, he was very clear about this. He said that he believes in the rule of law. Merrick Garland would not be the president's lawyer. He would not be the vice president's lawyer. This is about the American people and doing what is right for the American people. The Department of Justice, when it comes to law enforcement, is independent. This is what we believe, and this is what the president has said. This is not about politicizing anything. That is not true at all. And I would remind our folks on the other side that the FBI director was appointed by the president's predecessor. I would remind the folks on the other side that when Merrick Garland was indeed confirmed, it was a bipartisan fashion. So again, this is not what this is about. We do not interfere. We do not get briefed. The Department of Justice, again, when it comes to law enforcement matters, it is independent, complete independence, and I'm just not going to comment on that. None of us will, because we're going to let Merrick Garland speak for himself. And
even to this point, President Biden's not been briefed about anything.
Not been briefed. We have not interfered.
Not discussed it at all.
Not discussed.
We have.
I'm going to tell you, Jonathan, we have learned about all of this the same way the American people have learned about this, through public reports, through your reporting, and every other reporter who has talked about this. That's how we have learned about what is happening.
Let me turn to the domestic agenda. We saw our poll that came out, ABC News Ipsos, that came out last Sunday, showed that just 37% of Americans approve of President Biden's handling of the economy. 70% say they thought the economy was getting worse. Now, we've since learned that inflation actually abated in July. But why is it that if things are getting better, so many Americans are unhappy with President Biden's handling of it?
So, we'll say this, we have said this before. It's like, we get it. We understand what the American people are feeling at this time. This is a #1 priority. Inflation has been a #1 priority for this president. Lowering costs has been a #1 priority for this president. If you look at every day this summer, we saw gas prices go down by more than $1, saving Americans about a little bit more than $100 a month. That matters. And that is because partly of the work that this president has done. You just mentioned how inflation abated. You look at the CPI data last month in July, 0% of inflation. And so that is the work that we will continue to do. And if you look at, I know we're about to talk about what Congress did, what Democrats in Congress did with this Inflation Reduction Act, the work of this president. This president, when he announced back in 2019, he wanted to make sure that he led with his conviction on what is needed for the American people, making sure that we build this economy from the bottom up and the middle out. Do not leave anyone behind. And you see that anti-inflation bill. You see that it's going to lower costs for Americans, prescription drugs, energy costs, and also let's not forget those 13 million Americans on the ACA, Affordable Care Act, who are now going to continue to see their premiums go down. That is important.
But let me ask you, it's called the Inflation Reduction Act. But the Congressional Budget Office, which is nonpartisan, said that there would be a negligible impact on inflation this year and barely impact inflation at all next year. I mean, isn't it almost Orwellian? How can you call it Inflation Reduction Act when the nonpartisan experts say it's not going to?
So I appreciate that. I appreciate the question. We've actually addressed this, the CBO. It was the top line number. There's more in there that shows that it will have the money remember how we're doing this too. It's making sure that billionaires in corporate America are paying their fair share, making sure that the tax code is a little bit more fair. And so when you do that, when you put it in its totality, you will see that it will bring down, lower the deficit, which will help fight inflation. Look, here's the thing. We have 126 economists, both Republicans, both Democrats, who have said it's going to fight inflation. We have 5 former Secretary of the Treasury. There's more to it. It's just, it was the way that Republicans did that was so that it could make an argument that is false. It is going to fight inflation. It is, it has been proven. It has been said by economists across the board on the Republican side and the Democrat side as well.
So before you go, you've seen a lot of Democrats raise, or at least some Democrats in elected office say that Joe Biden shouldn't run for re-election, that it's time for younger, newer leadership. I'm not going to ask you if he's going to run, because he's already said that he's going to run, barring something.
He intends to run.
But let me ask you, this was a Maureen Dowd column on last Sunday where she said that he shouldn't run, but made this point. I thought this was interesting. Usually being a lame duck weakens you, but in Biden's case, it could strengthen him. We live in a Washington where people too often put power over principle. So many Republicans have behaved grotesquely out of a fear Trump will turn on them. So the act of leaving could elevate Biden, freeing him from typical re-election pressures so his team could do what they really thought was right rather than what was politically expedient. So let me just ask you very quickly, and we really are out of time, but is it possible that if he decides not to run, that as a lame duck president, he wouldn't be so lame, it might actually be better for him not to be running for re-election?
But here's the thing about that argument, John. First of all, as you said, he intends to run. We're not even focused on 2024. We're focusing on the moment right now, 2022. This is a president who passed the American Rescue Plan with all Democrats, who passed a bipartisan infrastructure legislation, which people said it would not happen.
He's got a lot of legislative, no question.
Right. And now we're talking about CHIPS Acts, which is going to bring in Made in America manufacturing jobs, right? Lower the cost of automobiles. And let's not forget what we were able to do for veterans, right? Which is our obligation. The president believes he has an obligation to veterans. And now you have this anti-inflation bill. That is more legislation, historic legislation, than many would argue, since LBJ. That matters. That matters for the American people.
Karine, Jean-Pierre, thank you very much
Thank
for being
you so
here
much, John, for having me.
Sunday show interview. Appreciate it.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.